Hi there, I'm Ice here, and I would like to welcome you to the conclusion of this series, Let's Play a Pacifist in Oblivion. All along I've called this Let's Play an experiment, and I'd like to stress that I have absolutely no background in any kind of experimental science or anything like that. So what I've done is check the internet for how to report on an experiment. And that's what I'm going to try to do in this video. So there won't really be any playing in this video, just me ranting endlessly and then the end credits. And if you'd rather just read what I have to say, I've posted the whole transcript in the description field, and you can also find it in a rather neater form on my blog. Well, according to my source on experiment reports, after my heading I should first have an abstract, and I'm actually working on that, a little short bonus video in the tradition of My Name Is Not Lily, but that's not this video. But the next thing after the abstract is to state my theoretical framework, and for that, also not this video, I'll refer you mainly to the trailer of the series called Do the Elder Scrolls Live Up to Their Vision? Briefly though, to sum up the theory, I referred to the game director, Todd Howard, and his vision of a game series where you could play quote-unquote however you want. So what I wanted to test out, I guess, was how far that freedom really goes. I mean, even the many skills in the Elder Scrolls fall into three categories: a warrior, thief, or mage. So I guess warriors are good at fighting, thieves are good at stealing, and mages are good at casting spells for either fighting or stealing. But I thought, if you're supposed to be able to play however you want, I mean, do you have to kill or steal? Or can you play as a pacifist without becoming an out-and-out thief? That's the question that the experiment was meant to test out. If I try to play like that, how far can I get? What quests can I complete? And so on. So, above all, I thought trying to play like that would be a fun change and an interesting challenge. Okay, the next thing in an experiment report would be the experiment itself, which in this case has been covered quite extensively in this Let's Play series that I've been doing. So now that we have completed the story of Pacifist, our character, and indeed left him praying at the Temple of the One in the Imperial City. Right here. It's time for the final parts. Analyzing the data, concluding then what the results of this experiment are, and then whether they are, I guess, what I expected them to be. So, can you even play as a pacifist? Well, I'd say 127 episodes say you can. I mean, I haven't really counted how long the whole Let's Play series runs for, but keep in mind I've edited out a lot of travelling and buying and selling stuff and other presumably boring stuff. But I do know from a program called Rye Bash that I have about 60 hours playtime with this character now. So, let's take a look at the data here. Let's see. Yeah. Here we are. So, yeah, I've completed, what, 48 quests, and I can probably have done a lot more than that too. I've been actively delaying, or been actively avoiding picking up too many quests at the same time here for the sort of sake of the neatness of the experiment. I try to do sort of one quest at a time, whereas usually I just pick up as many quests as I can when I'm at an area and then go all around the place finishing them up. But here I've tried to sort of, well, often at least, keep sort of the introduction to a quest and the actual quest doing in the same video, or the next 2 or 3 videos at the very least. But then I've been focusing at one quest at a time. So there are a number of quests that I've just not picked up in the first place yet. I guess my one expert skill would be illusion, and then my journeyman skills 2 would be light armor and sneak. And as you can see, I've no bounty, but on the contrary, I've become relatively famous in the end here. So yeah, I'm fairly sure you can play like a pacifist, although I guess it has to be said that my answer to that definitely depends on what you actually mean by a pacifist, because let's take a look at the crime report here. Yeah. No murders, fortunately, but 161 items stolen and 17 items pickpocketed. That looks rather thiefy, I guess. And you know, my character has been willing to take things that other people regarded, sometimes quite often wrongly, as their own. when that was necessary for the greater good. Because often the alternative was to kill someone for it, or let somebody kill somebody else with it, or something like that. So Pacifist, my character, certainly doesn't feel bad about stealing those books from the Mythic Dawn cult, for example, and I think he sometimes even got tempted to steal something just to sort of punish some of those people who tried to kill him all the time. But I'd like to point out that he never turned to stealing for profit. And he never joined the Thieves Guild, for example, so I still think he's a character who is not a thief. Or at least not an out-and-out thief, even if he sometimes has stolen things when necessary. I mean, the fact that his largest bounty ever has been 25, that's because he's never been, certainly never been caught, but mostly it's because he's been picking up stuff that aren't marked as owned by anyone in the game. I think a number of these items stolen are things that you take, like in dungeons, for example. They're not marked in red, so you can't really see whether they belong to anyone or not. Yeah. And then we get creatures killed, 164, also an important qualification to my so-called pacifist status. Many of those would be animals, and to me killing animals is completely compatible with pacifism. Others will be the undead or the Daedra, which is a more difficult question, I guess. I mean, my character wouldn't want to fight either of them, but basically I decided very early on that I was going to attach more value to the lives of people than to the lives of demons or ghosts, or shall we say the existence of demons or ghosts, because of course the undead aren't really alive in the first place. And as for the Daedra, they supposedly can't die, just be banished back to Oblivion. Yeah, as for the undead, I really felt vindicated about that choice as the Let's Play progressed, because one of the sort of unexpected joys of the series for me has been that playing as a character that had to really think about questions of, for example, life and death in the game and the game world made me as a player immerse myself a lot more in the, shall we say, more esoteric aspects of Bethesda's world design. For example, I really wasn't aware of how clearly they'd worked out what happens when you die in the game world. But it seems the natural order of things, at least, is that when you die you have a soul, and that moves on to a place called Etherius. And I have that on the authority of the dead themselves, specifically those in-game ghosts who were on their way to Etherius after first having been prevented from going there, either by failure to live up to their own ideals in life, the Knights of the Nine ghosts, or by plain necromancy, which incidentally is pretty evil in the game. I mean, it's not just a matter of making the remains of the dead to move of their own accord. Remember those ghosts in the Emperor's Tomb? They had their souls bound to this world by magic, so they actually were beside themselves with happiness when I'd killed them, or rather their souls were when I'd destroyed their undead physical forms. So if I'm ever going to make, let's say, an all-out pacifist in Skyrim, for example, instead of just the semi-pacifist character I'm doing now, I still wouldn't mind making that character some sort of Death Slayer or something. I'm not so sure about the Daedra, actually. The theory that I've been working under here is that when you kill a Daedra, or quote-unquote kill a Daedra, then their animus goes back to Oblivion, where it is reborn. But I mean, if people have souls that go to Etherius, it doesn't really seem that different, does it? And in fact, if I check how many people the game thinks my character has on his conscience, I think the count goes up to 20. Okay, to stick with the sort of terms of experiment reports, this is where we have to take into account error margins. Okay, because I think this number is almost purely because some of the Daedra that my character has fought, specifically those Dremora, because they're apparently counted as people by the game, which makes sense in a way. I mean, even if they're a separate race from all the playable races, the Dremora not only look humanoid, they can also talk, for example. But I'm not sure that this here number is really the key to what you can count as people or not in-game. I mean, if you try to use command humanoid on Umaril, for example, the big boss at the end of the Knights of the Nine quest line, you'll find that he's actually counted as a creature, not a person, even though he sure does talk to the player. Oh, and keep in mind also that my character only killed Dremora, or indeed any Daedra, I think, when they were posing a direct threat to the lives of people. So it's not like he went on a killing spree of undead and Daedra when he was short of money, for example. It's just that he'd rather banish a Daedra to Oblivion than see it send a human soul to Aetherius. Of course, you may disagree with those choices, and I could of course have tried an even less violent sort of all beings are sacred type character instead. In fact, one of my favourite YouTubers the last half year or so has been Westside Luigi and his Felix the Peaceful Monk videos. Needless to say, a character like that would have been a rather different experiment from mine. I mean, if I've understood Luigi correctly, Felix limits himself strictly to fetch quests, and has never even tried the main quest in Skyrim. That's a Skyrim character, not an Oblivion character. And yeah, I guess my Pacifist was maybe a little more ambitious than that. He wanted, basically, no, he just wanted to do some good in the world. And yeah, then it seemed sometimes the best thing was to banish some of those Daedra. But no more than he had to. No more than he absolutely had to defend others, I think. So yeah, anyway, he made the choices that he made, and they may or may not have been the right ones according even to his own ethos, but that's why after all they kept the entire last episode of the series doing penance for any transgressions. Okay, yeah, so, but even, I mean, if you allow a pacifist to fight Daedra and the undead if necessary, playing as a pacifist is certainly not without its challenges. For one thing, money is an awful lot harder to come by when you can't just kill off some outlaws and sell everything they own to the nearest general store. I mean, this character doesn't even steal stuff and sell that, and even that would pay very poorly compared to the blood money you get from looting. But the fact of the matter is, the money issue is something I really loved about my character. It puts you much more on level with the NPCs in the game when you're not, stinking rich all the time. And I had to be much more careful with what money I did get, which was, yeah, kind of a new challenge in the game, because unlike in Morrowind, which I'd played before, there really isn't that much to spend money on in Oblivion, at least once your house is properly decorated. But this time around, I really needed money, especially for spells. Another challenge, obviously, is surviving combat without killing your enemies, and because getting high enough level calm spells is hard until you can make your own spells, and sneaking often fails, and enemies will chase you a lot farther than they did in Morrowind, for example. But again, all that was really fun, a really fun challenge for me. It's a bit like Amnesia: The Dark Descent, to be honest. If you can't kill what's trying to kill you, it's really a lot scarier. It's a very different challenge. And then, of course, knowing about the Jonestone really helped, because when things got really hard, I got my invisibility power, and I could always escape, and arguably that makes it all a bit too easy again. But then that allowed me to sort of focus on the exploring the quest design, which was kind of the next hurdle, because, I mean, what can you achieve as a pacifist in the Oblivion game as created by Bethesda Softworks? The first and greatest disappointment to me was that the Mages Guild questline was clearly designed with a relatively violent character in mind. Even when on the surface you're just sent to pick up magical wood for a star, for example, the quest won't even register that you've got it until you've killed those necromancers challenging you. So if you want to go very far in the Mages Guild, you're just forced to accept that necromancers are evil and have to die. And that's doubly annoying because, as far as I can see, there aren't any repercussions if the player character summons as many undead servants as they'd like. So whoever designed the Mages Guild questline just doesn't get quite the top marks for role-playing versatility in my book. If anything, it seems they expected non-violent characters to go with the Thieves Guild instead, which to me is a bit weird, because a mage with calm and invisibility spells is much better equipped to avoid combat than even a very sneaky burglar. So, if there are still some good Oblivion modders out there, here's an idea for you. Fix the Mages Guild questline. The main quest, on the other hand, is a lot better designed, I think, and I believe it actually is purposely built to let you get at least quite far without killing anyone. Just remember the way I could actually pickpocket the key off that Dremrut Kvatch, for example, or the 4th volume of Mankar Cameron's commentaries that I pickpocketed off that Mythic Dawn sponsor. I'm sure I'm not the only one who never even knew you could do those things without killing anyone, until, with this character I actually tried. Finishing the main quest line, now that's another matter entirely, since it definitely requires the Mankar Cameron has to die. And the only practical way I could think of to accomplish that without landing the killing blow myself was to summon or command someone or something else to do it for me, which isn't really that different in moral terms, but I mean, the man is quite literally trying to turn the whole world into a living hell, so at least the reason for killing him makes a lot more sense. And again, no one's forcing you to finish the main quest. I really like the way the Motton tells you very clearly both what you'll have to do and that the portal will close behind you. Much better than basically sending you into a trap like the Mages Guild characters do. So, if you don't think saving the world is worth sacrificing one guilty man's life, you don't actually have to. And they even make a point about how you could join the Mythic Dawn and stay with those madmen trying to take over the world if you like. So, I mean, you can be as evil as you like in this game, but still, it seems to me if you want to be really, really good, you basically have two choices. Either make sure Mankar Cameron dies somehow, or leave the world and all the people in it exposed to the constant onslaught of demonic hordes. So, yeah, if for some reason you'd want to analyse the values or morality of the game, then clearly it does assume that some people are just so evil that it's better for everyone if they just die. And I mean, killing in self-defense isn't a crime in the game world, and killing an evil mastermind is heroic, apparently, which is really just as much as to say that even in a computer game, as long as that game has an element of telling a story, then it's going to imply some kind of values as well. And the game's conception of heroism is fairly hard to quarrel with, I think. I mean, if you could have assassinated Hitler before he did all that he did, wouldn't the world have been a better place for it? I mean, especially if you could have gone invisible while sneaking past his guards, so you didn't even have to kill any other Nazis to get to Hitler. So, all in all, I'm happy with the main quest. It was really fun to try. I actually got much further than I really thought I would. Does it live up to Todd Howard's grand vision of playing however you want? Well, nearly at least. And, maybe that's as close as we're ever going to get. When it comes to the expansions, the Shivering Isles expansion isn't really for pacifists, but then that is the realm of the Daedric Prince of Madness, so it kind of makes sense for him to require, or expect, or want some violence at least. And again, you don't have to do the expansion at all. The Knights of the Nine add-on occupies a sort of middle ground of sorts, in that you don't really have to kill anyone there either until the very end, except for dispatching ghosts. But to really finish that quest, you have to follow the bad, ancient, high elf, admittedly half Daedra bad guy into the spirit world. And, you know, I totally get that the only way out of the spirit world is to destroy the spirit version of him, of Umaril, but I really don't get what the deal is with that magical wall that blocks your retreat as soon as you approach his physical form. Nobody warned me about that completely differently from the main quest. So again, I guess an out-and-out pacifist character clearly was not what the designers had in mind, and yeah, that was a bit disappointing to Pacifist at least, because he was drawn to this questline largely because of its religious aspects, and because the reasoning behind his own pacifism was also largely religious. But when you think about it, it does actually make sense, I suppose. I mean, it's a quest line about knights and a crusader, after all, you know, the kind of character who values bravery and not running away, so I'm not really going to complain about that either. But what I suppose I have been missing in Oblivion then was something more along the lines of the Temple and the Imperial Cult quest lines in Morrowind. Something for a less violent priest character rather than a holy crusader type character. Like, there was a quest where you'd be sent to heal sick people or help raise money for the poor, for example, and that's the kind of thing that Pacifist would have loved to do. And as far as I can see, there really isn't a quest like that in Oblivion. Not that there aren't an awful lot of smaller quests for you to try, of course, and I've obviously only covered a tiny fraction of them, as I talked about before, but there were some really, really fun ones. I really did love the quest where I got to actually stop a goblin war. Yeah, my pacifist stopped a war, even though just a goblin war. What else? Well, The Shadow of a Hack Dirt, that was another high point for me. Really, really difficult though. But I mean, in the end, I just barely managed to rescue this intended sacrifice Dharma without killing anyone. That was really fun. And yeah, then there were some quests that just turned out to be unexpectedly violent, like the unfriendly competition quest. I really thought that that would just be mainly like a thieving quest of some sort, you know, frame some people, break into their store, steal their ledger, figure out where they find their wares, and so on and so on. Smuggling, whatever. But no, it turned out to be require violence, and I really had to think hard and actually kind of break the quest design to get that one done non-violently, but I did manage, and when I did manage, that was really, really fun. Although, yeah, I mean, the violent part of that quest, well, I guess it exists to kind of bring home a point that you can't, the penalty for stealing from the dead in the game world is death. And that's a bit strange because most players, the first thing they'll do once they duck into some sort of ancient tomb or ancient crypt is they'll start looting everything that's there and bring it somewhere and sell it. So that was a bit strange. But yeah, it was fun, definitely was fun, and you know, basically, if you've enjoyed this series half as much as I've enjoyed making it, then mission complete as far as I'm concerned. And also, I guess these things are more or less what I wanted to find out when I started doing the Let's Play. Can you play the game as a pacifist? Yeah, I think you can. Can you finish the sort of biggest quest lines? Nah. Not without some provisos, at least. You'll have to be willing to see some entities die, at least. But you don't have to do it yourself. And even kind of quests like the main quest, where the designers deliberately tried to keep you from bringing any followers, you can still get somebody else to do the dirty work for you, it seems. Yeah. You know, maybe not the Knights of the Nine quest. You know, you actually have to go into the spirit plane and fight Umaril himself. But you know, he's not really people. That's kind of what my pacifist decided anyway. Oh, and my source on experiment report says that at the very end of an experiment report you should critique the experiment, see what you could have done differently. And well, in a game like Oblivion you could always do something differently. I mean, even aside from the very different possibilities, like making a Felix the Monk kind of character. Yeah, there was a long time there when I really thought I was going to end without finishing the main quest at all, or even the Knights of the Nine quest. And maybe that would have been truer to my character's ideals, but I felt that would have left the series without a proper sense of closure, which is something I've tried to give it now. And left everyone at the mercy of the Daedra. Or at the opposite end of things, I found it very strange that no evil NPCs were able to use Detect Life and find me when I was invisible, so I was wondering whether to go back to the Necromancers and was it Wellspring Grove, somewhere in the Mages Guild questline anyway, and just not cast invisibility, but you know, then I could have probably just run away from those Necromancers anyway, and I'd been none the better off sort of quest-wise, because to get the quest update I'd have to draw them into battle with some Imperial soldiers or something to get them killed, and that would have seemed very contrived, so I opted to just give up on that quest line, so yeah, that's an option. But I mean, other than that, I think I'll leave it to you, the viewers, to critique whatever you felt the experiment lacked. And now that we've seen the credits for that Bethesda made, I think what I need to do at the very end here is to thank a few people. People who in different ways help make this Let's Play happen. First off, since I'm neither particularly funny nor a good gamer, you, dear patient viewer, must be watching because you're taking an interest in the project, so thank you. Secondly, there are a couple of people who have, without my ever asking them, spread the word of the series to a certain extent. So Todd may not be watching this because he's taken a bit of a break from YouTube, but without his blogging about my Oblivion experiment at its beginning, I would have probably had 0 views and even fewer comments or subscribers, and he's also been a big inspiration, and his videos taught me how to use Audacity. So thanks, Todd. Another Let's Player I have to thank for taking me under his wing is Nugget146, who even made me a recommendation video. Thanks to Ginger Jobberton and Vicious Hammock for interviewing me on their channel about my project. Thanks to Samuel Online for answering questions, promoting me on his channel, and being such a nice guy. Thanks to Kikoski for subscribing while we were both playing Birthright. I know that I owe a lot of subscribers to you as well, and thanks to anyone recommending me. You really didn't have to, and I'm very, very grateful for it. There are a few other people who deserve special mention. First of all, Jan Crevenson for being the very first YouTuber who ever commented on my videos. And Heroes1991, who has been with me for a long time, commented prolifically. For similar reasons, thanks to 258 Legolas, who started playing Pacifist himself, I think. The unofficial Elder Scrolls pages have been an invaluable encyclopedia of the game, and some 30 episodes into the project I discovered Lord Karmic had done a non-lethal YouTube walkthrough of the main quest, so I did pick up one or two ideas from him. Denubis X for commenting, and Gex was the very first Let's Player I ever watched. Variax is my favourite Elder Scrolls Let's Player, so it was a major inspiration when he subscribed. Other than that, well, the software I use is Fraps and Movie Maker and Audacity. And then finally, having thanked these people, I of course have to point out that they are not to blame in any way for the series, neither its total lack of wit or gaming prowess, or the epic length of this rant, nor indeed for any other fault or error or shortcoming of the Let's Play. I claim full responsibility. So yeah, that's it. The promised abstract should be up fairly soon, but until then, go in peace and live and let live.